On August 31st, 1959, Dwight Eisenhower spoke these words of truth. I like to believe that people in the long run are going to do more to promote peace than our governments. Indeed, I think that people want peace so much that one of these days government had better get out of the way and let them have it. America, that time is now. We must pursue peace and condemn compromise. As I stand before you today, I am reminded of a watershed event in my life that occurred just 10 days ago. On April 14, 2007, I presided over the double casket funeral of two cousins, aged 13 and 15 years. These children were brutally murdered on their way home from the grocery store. Looking over my podium, I could see the two children. The young man was adorned with a baseball cap, signifying his allegiance to his school's baseball team. In the casket next to the young man was a young girl. She was described as having a friendly attitude and full of love. I stood before the processional as family members walked by to view the bodies of their two relatives lying in their caskets. Just 2 days later, while sitting in my home, I was bombarded with the news reports of yet another loss of life in our nation. Later, it was confirmed to be 33 exactly. The horrible massacre that took place in Blacksburg, Virginia, on the campus of Virginia Tech, were incomprehensible. The lives of 32 people were savagely and brutally taken by the hands of a very disturbed and obviously troubled individual. As a result, the world has been robbed of the contribution and attributes of talented, innovative, and world-changing people. We have been robbed of the dreams and visions that will now go unfulfilled because of such a heinous act of violence. As I watched the news, anger and frustration began knocking on the door of my soul. Love rose to the occasion and answered the door, and that is what brings me before you today. To those that are hurting and to a nation that needs healing, I bring these words of comfort. In God we trust. Now, many of you, like I have asked the question, how could something like this happen in these United States of America? I have pondered over this question in meditation and deep thought and have concluded that there are 4 basic needs for every human being. Number 1, acceptance. Number 2, identity. Number 3, security. And number 4, purpose. Acceptance is knowing you are loved and needed by others. Identity is knowing you are individually significant and special. Security is knowing you are well protected and provided for. And purpose is knowing you have a reason for living. However, when those needs are not met, there are consequences. And we have to ask ourselves, what kind of people are we producing? If they've never received love or felt needed, they've never seen themselves as individually significant or special, they've never felt well protected or provided for, and have had no purpose or reason to live. Now that we understand the 4 basic needs of every human being, let's look at how they lay the foundation for the path you'll take in life. The words and images that we hear and see, whether negative or positive, determine the way we think. Now, the way we think will determine how we feel. Our emotions or feelings will determine the decisions we make, and sometimes, unfortunately, our negative decisions will determine the acts and the actions we take. As a society, we must love and accept one another. As parents, we must communicate to our children that they are significant and special, and that they are well protected and provided for. And as a village, we must all help to give one another a reason to live. After all, the words we share with one another shape our thinking, and our thinking determines our feelings, And our feelings determine our decisions, and those decisions determine our actions. This terrible tragedy has opened the door to the enemies of fear, bitterness, unforgiveness, and anger. But I say to you today, close the door to these enemies. We must not allow fear the opportunity to put our lives on hold. To the parents around America who have lost loved ones by the hands of a brutal murderer, you must not allow bitterness and unforgiveness to act like cancer and destroy your lives from the inside out. And to all of us who are angry, we must allow our anger to generate our passion for what is right, what is good, and what is decent. What can we do to use this tragedy as fuel to make changes for a better world? There is one thing we must not do. We must not allow hurt to be accompanied by a strong disposition to harbor unforgiveness towards those that hurt you. We must combat that state of mind and forgive. And when you make the choice to refuse to forgive, you freely place the power of your life in the hands of another person. America, don't let another person have that much power over your life because of unforgiveness. You must forgive. When you forgive, you take that power back that was held over you, and you reclaim your life by refusing to allow another person to control you. You know, I can recall in the book of Matthew a story about John the Baptist, who was Jesus' first cousin. He was assassinated by the order of King Herod. His head was cut off and displayed on a platter. And when they told Jesus, he departed and went to be alone. Now, can you imagine the pain and the hurt he must have felt? Grief interrupted his purpose for life, but the people who were sick still followed him. The Bible says that Jesus is touched with the feelings of our infirmities, weaknesses, and pains. So when he saw them, he was reminded of his assignment and was moved with compassion and healed them in spite of his grief. To some of you families who are in the midst of grief and sorrow, follow the example of Jesus. Allow your compassion to rise up and use it to bring healing to others instead of staying in the grief over your loved ones. Yes, it hurts, and it will hurt for a long time, but begin to thank God that you had a wonderful opportunity to spend time with such a precious soul. And think about the good times and the fun times, and be determined that you're going to love and show compassion to others as a Thanksgiving offering. Parents, be thankful for the opportunity you had to love and raise and care for your child who is now absent from the body and present with the Lord. I believe you can make it. You will make it, and you will make a difference in this world and in the world to come. On March the 30th, 1863, President Lincoln spoke these words: "We have been the recipients of the choicest bounties of heaven. We have been preserved these many years in peace and prosperity. We have grown in numbers, wealth, and power as no other nation has ever grown. But we have forgotten God. We have forgotten the gracious hand which preserved us in peace and multiplied and enriched and strengthened us. And we have vainly imagined in the deceitfulness of our hearts that all these blessings were produced by some superior wisdom and virtue of our own. Intoxicated with unbroken success, we have become too self-sufficient to feel the necessity of redeeming and preserving grace, too proud to pray to God that made us. America, it is in God we trust. May God bless you, and may God bless America."